And here we go. We are ready to rock and roll.
Are we then?
Yep.
Well, maybe I better see if I can get on our channel then.
Opal, hello, how are you? Hi, we're doing all right. We're still on high alert, but other than that, we're doing okay. I think it was the cat that made that banging sound last night.
I think so, yeah.
I think he ran up on the speaker and hit the wall or something. Because I can't find anything else. We had a weird noise last night that was rather startling, but only happened once. We've been trying to figure out what it was. But yeah, we're good. Joy says, hello, high alert from what? Oh, Ian's half-sister, the psychotic one. I saw her again yesterday morning on my way to see a client. She was 2 blocks from our house and heading in our direction. So I pulled over about a block and a half later and texted my granddaughter to let her know that she was in the neighborhood because I wasn't sure where she was. So we're just on high alert. And because of that, I'm finding out how many times the raccoons are in our backyard. Because I've been checking the cameras in the morning.
What would help if we, anyway.
Yeah. But, yeah. So, you know, some of our usual, life is like that. Sometimes things don't cooperate the way you'd like them to. And sometimes you have psychotic people that you can't deal with. Talon says, oh my, I managed to make it on time. Yes, you did. Welcome, Talon. Yeah, so, you know, that's kind of where we're at right now. And trying to teach the cat not to go to the bathroom on the bath mat in the bathroom. That's our recent mini crisis. So, it's fun. Sheila says, good day from West Virginia. Hey, Sheila. Welcome. What do we want to talk about today besides our little mini woes and whatnot? We're ready. We're ready to start jumping into a conversation.
Are we?
Yes, distract
Okay.
us. Distract us from whatever. But yeah. Kelly says, hello, Siofra and Ian. I've watched almost all of your videos and finally caught alive. Well, welcome and thank you for watching almost all of our videos. There's a lot of them now. Yep. So, yay.
Feel free to participate, everybody.
Absolutely. This is our opportunity as a community to just, you know, talk about stuff that's on our minds and ask questions of us in real time. And it keeps our minds sharp and makes us have to think on our feet, which I like for myself. Makes you think through things, you know. It's like, and you guys help us focus on what you all want and need from us.
Yeah, well, I always discovered long ago that the best way to learn something is to try to teach it to somebody else. Best way to learn it yourself.
This is true. Because then you have to try and remember what it was like before you knew anything.
You end up with all these little details.
Right, and like, how did you get from there to here? It's like confusing sometimes. People ask, how do you do that? I don't know. Let me think. We'll figure that out. But hey, anything related to magical or magical existence or whatever is a fine subject for us. Helen says, I get visits at nights by raccoons, opossums, and wild foxes. The joys of living on a river. Wow, yes. I think that sounds lovely, so long as you don't have anything for them to get into. Violet says, hi, you two.
Hello,
I am with you, and no Moon Kai class until May 11th. If I think of something, I will ask, but I'm generally kind of quiet, working in the corner. I love listening. Well, welcome, and we love having you in the background listening, and if anything comes up, you can ask, and that is just perfectly fine. Exploration of reality of all kinds.
So I've got I did a banishing ritual of the pentagram, and I put it on video, but I haven't got that out yet. I tried using 2 cameras. I'm not sure how well it's going to come out because I haven't rendered it yet, but we'll find out soon, and I'll get that up.
Right. So he did the one last week, which was to give a background and overview of the thing itself. And then we decided it would be worthwhile for him to just do it so you can see it. And this will be the first time we're like doing like a ritual, as it were, on camera. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it turns out.
We didn't have the lighting quite worked out, but I think it was close enough. We'll just put it up and see if anybody wants to watch it.
Well, it'll give you a good overview anyway of the hand movements and gestures and things like that to go along with it. So that's coming. So come on, guys, give us a question. Something to get the conversation rolling.
Well, maybe I should get out my Enochian dictionary and get back to trying to pronounce that so I can get back to doing something. Been talking about it, but
yeah, maybe
it's
so.
time to actually do something.
Sundrop says hello. Hi, Sundrop. Thank you for joining us. And like I said, questions are good. Once we get into something, we just go all out. So it's always fun and entertaining to try and remember things. I was trying to think. I've had a couple of visitors this week, but nothing that I could really talk about. Sundrop says, I forgot my questions. Like you had them written down and you forgot them, or they just sort of went out of your head. It could be both.
I've been rereading The Tree of Life by a young Israel Regardi, and he wrote some interesting, honest opinions about Crowley in there, but also, boy, at that young age, he was very excessively verbose. While he was complaining about other people like Levi being excessively verbose.
Oh, yeah, Levi was like the super verbose guy.
But the way he put it is he had adjectivitis when he made that, when he wrote that book.
So he had an inflammation of too many adjectives.
Yep.
Okay.
It's clear when you reread the book. I read his later stuff, but that was an earlier one, and it's amusing for that reason anyway.
So Violet says, what do you think of sewing on buttons as a way to focus my attention on spellcasting? Well, if you're sewing it on your spell, I think that's a great idea. Or you mean just sewing on a button to help you focus on something small while you're focusing on the spell? I think either one would work, but whatever works for you. She says, I love anything of Israel Regardi and Crowley. Talon says, I get accused of cultural appropriation all the time. My system of ritual is my personal adaptation of BTW, but I incorporate all things from my tribal heritage, Chickasaw Nation. I'm not sure what BTW is. You can let us know what that means. But, you know, eclectics are often accused of cultural appropriation, and I think that there's a big difference between being inspired by someone else's cultural history and mythology and ritual, and then claiming that you have some secret knowledge to a ritual that is generally reserved just for their...
to monetize it or something.
Yeah. So, you know, people love to throw words around and decide things for themselves, and we are nothing if not instantly critical of things that we haven't done ourselves. That seems to be part of human nature. So as long as you're clear with what you're doing, I wouldn't worry about it. Well, I don't think that he means BTW, by the way. Sheila says, can I banish mice? I am besieged by them. They know I won't hurt them, and they take advantage of me. I don't know how. Some people say that they can do that and talk to the mouse people.
You're welcome to try. I have been trying that with pests. I try to get rid of the ants in our house too, and so far I haven't had any luck on insects and things.
Yeah, I mean, it really just depends on
I'm sure
on that.
I'm sure that there are people who can.
But you can get live traps, and then you can trap them and cart them like a few miles from your house and let them go, like in a park or down by a river or something like that. Since they're wild animals, it's not like you have to find a home for them like in someone else's house. So I would think. So Violet says YouTube on mice ideas. I know, laugh out loud, by the way. Kelly Stenard says, I unknowingly banished mice and rats that decided my home was a respite. Yuck. I was so upset I started chanting with a lot of feeling and none since. Yay!
Yeah,
I mean,
we do.
Okay, so Rudolf Steiner had a method for banishing things, which is to, you probably wouldn't want to do that if you don't want to kill the mice. So I don't know why I'm telling you this anyway, but it's to catch whatever the thing is you're trying to get rid of and burn it up and mix its ash with water and then spray it on your property. I saw once, though, there was a garden that was being overrun by rabbits, and they put up signs that said something like, rabbits go this way. It's like they sent them to the next county across the way. I don't know. But it works on insect pests for your garden, like, for plants. And I think the reason why it works for that is biologically, everything carries its own demise within it, and by grinding something up, you are actually releasing it from the confines of it, and so then a certain percentage of the population will catch whatever it is that takes that particular insect out. But again, this is a very personal thing, and I remember reading about it years ago when I was reading Steiner's books, and I thought it was interesting, not something I did, and so that's the only thing I can think of, though, that I know. Talon says, Sheila, save all glass jars, place anything in a jar, you'll starve them out eventually. Joy says, did you try to just ask them, mice and ants, to leave? Well, we've tried asking the ants to leave, and they don't care. Sundrop says, how do you raise energy effectively for spell work, and does it matter what kind of bell I use for cleansing? The only bell I have is a Christmas jingle bell. I don't think that the kind of bell is that important. It's the bell sound that you're making that matters. And later on you can find different bells you like for different reasons, and different bells have different sounds. I finally found a Tibetan singing bowl that I could actually make sing. And I have a terrible time with them, so I bought that one on the spot. I'm like, it works for me. I've tried, I don't know, dozens of them, and they all just are thud. Nothing happens. And you can pick up all kinds of bells from secondhand stores and things. I've gotten a lot of bells that way.
Whistles too?
I don't think I've gotten whistles. Yeah, no.
Sorry.
You are the whistler, so you don't want him to whistle. He is very loud. But yeah, it isn't, you can develop a energetic relationship with the bell that you're using a lot, but it's not as vital, especially in the beginning. You use what you have.
Yeah, they're ideally for Western magicians, they like something called Electrum Magicum, which is a mixture of the 7 metals blended together, including mercury. And I'm not sure how you actually manage to pull off that alchemy, but you can get ones made out of Electrum Magicum. So they take a good charge, any of the planetary energies and things. But yeah, that's just a
That's for someone who has money.
Yeah.
Because they're not cheap. So, and they only get more expensive.
Yeah.
Mary says, hi everyone, happy spring. Hope the weather is nice for everyone. It's been nice here. Supposedly the northern lights were visible here in the Appalachian the mountains the last few nights. Rare. Yeah, very rare. Of course, if they were visible here, it was raining. Right now it's nice out though. We've had a bit of a break in the rain at the moment. We don't know how long that's going to last. Joy says, what do you use a bell for? There's a lot of different purposes for bells. You can have bells charged up for specific things, like somebody made and gave me a fairy bell that when you ring it, it calls the fairies, and I tried it and it worked. So bells to me are there's several purposes. One is announcing to the spirit world that you're about to do something really super cool, and they might want to like come by and have a look. And that's like when you're beginning a ritual and you ring the bell, it's like, hey, look over here because something fun's going to come down. And then you can use bells for cleansing a space, getting rid of negative energy. You can use bells for protection. The idea of the chimes, the wind chimes, is the sound that comes through the bells chases away negative energy. Helps to protect your property from negative spirits and things.
Another way that they're used, especially in like the Golden Dawn as such, would be associating them with the planets and the Siofra and the planetary rings. So you do 3 rings. It's for Saturn that you're going to invoke or evoke or whatever you're going to do with it. You do 7 for Venus, 5 for Mars, that type of thing.
Yeah. So like everything else, it really depends on what your path is and what you're trying to do, and you can use it as a tool.
Hooking the bell, it's hard to do 5 if you have one that you have a handle on like that.
Oh, yeah.
Because you get lots of extra dings out of it.
Doing this way works a little bit better.
But if you got one like mine with a little hammer, that you go bing, bing.
Yeah, his hammer bell, if you hit it too hard, makes your eardrums start to bleed.
It's extremely loud.
It's extremely loud.
Even if you give it the tiniest touch, you have to be real careful to just go. Pop.
So Mary says, to the mice person, my friend uses a mouse birth control and it has worked for her. Well, that would be nice. Attrition, sort of like with cats where you get them fixed, a feral cat colony, and eventually the colony ages out and goes away if it doesn't have any new blood coming in all the time. Violet says, oh my God, learning about bells is so awesome. Oh my God, 3 rings for Mars, 7 for Venus. Oh, yay.
Except it's 5 for Mars.
It's 3 for Saturn, 5 for Mars, 7 for Venus. Yeah.
There's 6 for solar.
Right. Every planet has its number.
9
Opal
for the
says,
moon. Yep.
my brass mortar and pestle makes that crisp and loud ding like a bell.
Yeah, speaking of which, you can use things as bells too that aren't necessarily made as bells. So,
This is true.
You could use a little crystal, make a little bell out of it or something, depending on what it was.
Pots and pans.
But yeah,
in Banishing, stuff like that, when I'm doing a whole house, especially when there's kids involved, because they really like this, you get wooden spoons and pots and pans, and they run around and bang on the pots and pans, yelling at the bad spirits to get out of the house. They really get into it too. It gives them some focus for their energy. So certainly that is sort of like a bell sound. That's along the lines of chasing away negative energy.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah. And bells are associated with the element of air in general because of the tone that it makes, and sound in general is associated with the air element because it travels through the air and it requires air moving in order for it to be heard by someone else.
Right, and you certainly can use a bell for if you're doing, again, Western magicians have the altars with the 4 elements on the corners, and a lot of times you can use a bell as one of the symbols of the element instead of using a dagger or something like a lot of the Western magicians use. If you want something that's not so slicey, use a bell to represent air.
And of course then basic other stuff like incense, smoke rising, and that kind of thing is very airy.
Yeah, well, an incense is it can be fire and air at the same time.
Well,
if you're holding a talisman over it, to consecrate a talisman over the incense, then you've got the influence of the fire, the heat, and the air. So you can influence it with 2 elements at once, and that's of course the Wiccan way of doing it, with the incense for the fire and air, and the water and salt for the water and earth.
Yep. That's in that banishing ritual. You get all 4 elements that way. And then the person who's doing the drawing and the breathing and the whatever cleansing is the spirit part. Adds to it. Violet says, "Oh goodness, I said it wrong. I knew that." Yeah, we know you knew that, but we wanted to make sure that it was corrected, just in case someone comes later and doesn't know that. You never know; it can happen. But yeah, good question though. Thanks for asking that. Talon says BTW is British traditional witchcraft. Okay, thank you. I figured it was something like that, but it's not one that I'm that familiar with. So,
Traditional, okay.
yeah. There's so many different forms that are out there and different traditions and things like that. Some are hereditary and some are learned and acquired and, it depends. Some are initiatory only. It's like keeping track of it all. I'm of the mind that if the earth is the thing that teaches me how magic works, and cultures around the world at different times have drawn upon that knowledge, created their forms from it, but the foundation of what they're doing is there in the ground, in the sky, in the culture that they're from. And so, if I can understand the foundational principles that they're using, then it doesn't matter if it's, it's not like I'm trying to remake their tradition or reclaim it or anything. I'm just understanding the mechanisms and the intention that they had and maybe utilizing some of the focus that they developed and turn it into my own personal focus. Mary Wick says, "Hey, hi Mary." But yeah, it's certainly something that comes up on the online forums a lot. Like I said, people really like to tell everyone else that they're wrong about whatever it is that they're doing, and they're doing something incorrectly. And then some of them seem to use that as a bludgeon to try and, I don't know, stop innovation or inspiration, and make you feel like you don't belong.
There's really no incorrect or correct. The only way you can say something is correct or incorrect is if it violates the conditions you need for success. So, like mirrors, magic mirrors, you can use them to keep off evil by the way the Chinese and Japanese do a lot, or the way we do by putting them to face outside and
to send things back you don't want.
But you can also use them as a magic mirror to contact beings and people and places and do scrying. So it can both banish and do the opposite kind of. You can invoke images on its surface.
Yeah, there's all kinds of things.
So there is no right or wrong, no correct or incorrect. It's just if whatever rules you've set up for yourself, if it's going to work for you.
And that's the thing, it's an inner dialogue with the universe.
Right.
And so if what you're doing goes against that inner dialogue that you've created, like the things that make sense to you, then it's not going to work for you because...
Of course, you have to watch out, because gravity will get you if you step off a cliff.
Which I put on one of our comments recently.
Yeah.
Someone argued with that on a forum I was on.
Well, hey, if they're capable of levitation, they can show me, and then I'll accept that.
Absolutely.
Actually, I do believe levitation is possible, but that's a whole other subject.
So Mary says, "Good to see you." Nice to see you too, Mary. Thank you for dropping by. We're always fascinated by who shows up for our live shows. And it's like we get a mix of regulars that come and go, and then new people that show up, and it keeps it fresh and interesting.
Yeah.
It really does. Sundrop says, "But can mirrors be portals to other dimensions or worlds?" Which would be what Ian was talking about when you're using it to invoke a being into the mirror so that you can talk to them.
You can also use the mirror as a doorway and put your mental body or your astral body through it onto the other planes. You could, if you charge it up for Akashi, you could go anywhere. If you charge it up with the fire element, then you can use it to travel onto the fire plane by visualizing your mental or your astral body shrinking to the size of the mirror, put your consciousness there and walk into the mirror and walk into the element that way, so you can travel to any of the places you want if you charge up your mirror properly. It's easier to charge if you have some fluid condenser on it. But that's not a necessity, but it's easy to make, just some strong chamomile tea basically, and let it dry.
Sundrop is one of the younger members of our group.
Mm-hmm.
Just letting you know.
Was I getting too
No, I'm just letting you know.
or something?
It's like,
I know that.
yeah.
I've been here.
So that would definitely be a yes. I actually have a past life memory where a mirror was something that I used to talk to my higher guardian, Moida, in a different time altogether, which was sort of cool and interesting. Mary says, I never miss one. I like your dialogue. I'm also a crone, so it's like camaraderie. Yay! Yay for camaraderie. Cronery.
Cronery.
That's right. This is a cronery. We have a few crones out there. Age related at any rate. I sworn I saw something go by me.
Ruth said hi.
Hi, Ruth.
Do you not have that?
What? Ruth says, hi, all. Harry Wick says, we're few and far between around here. So am I missing something?
No, I thought...
I thought I saw something go by me behind my head. That was... But I didn't see it on the video. Moonfire Dawn says, hello, lovelies. I love how bells and mirrors have both been a focus of mine last few days or so. Love hearing other people into the same things. Julia says, wee, I made it, as I slide into my usual seat. Welcome, Julia. Joy says, I stepped into a tarot cart once.
And that's another good way to scry the tarot cards.
In mirrors?
Well...
Oh, going through the mirror to find out.
You go through the tarot card to find out the symbolism of the tarot card.
Yeah. I actually had some tarot cards that came to me a night teaching me about their symbolism. They would show up as I was going to sleep and explain themselves, which I'd never had happen before. That was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
It was sort of an odd deck, too, someone had given me.
Yeah, but that's a good way to find out symbols or things, is to visualize them as a doorway and then open them and step through with your mental or astral body.
So Violet says, when you charge a mirror, how exactly do you charge it? You put tea on one side and set it by the moon, maybe, or is it all intention?
Well, the tea helps it to absorb whatever you're going to charge it with. It's definitely part of your attention, but the lunar energy is very good for scrying and clairvoyance. So if you want to use it to see things like that, it's very good to charge it with moon energy. So it depends on what you're after. If you want to take a journey into, the love sphere, you could charge it with Venus energy.
Right, you can make it very specific to whatever it is you're trying to do.
Yeah, but
general
lunar,
scrying, though, lunar would be good.
Yeah, lunar is very good for general scrying. Clairvoyance and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like your ability to put yourself into the right sphere of energy that you want, to be able to then focus that into the mirror, is going to determine how strong the charge is on the mirror. So the more you understand those things and the more practice you have with getting into the different states of mind, like, you would be in a different state of mind for Venus or the moon or Mars or, whatever. So it's limited by your ability to connect with those energies to a certain extent, as far as the charging goes. Mary says, have you heard of Sally Crow? I just heard her being interviewed, and she also sees gnomes and undines and such. I'm thinking of getting her book. No, I haven't heard of her until now. Joy says, I imagine the white border was a door frame and stepped through. It was the high priestess. Wow. Good. Interesting. Mary says, how do you think elementals feel about dogs? Dogs are a living, breathing thing that are around. I don't know that they have any feelings about them one way or the other.
Yeah,
I think dogs could maybe see them, but dogs are more into spirits, though. I'm not sure about elementals. Mary says, I enjoyed Ian's video the other day.
Thank you.
Mary says, I wonder if someone is behind you, Siofra. Yeah, I don't know. It was like sort of bizarre. Definitely seemed like a change in the light. Maybe it was something that happened outside and the light changed out the window and my eye interpreted that as movement.
So I think you've missed a couple. There was one about Mary says, have you heard of Sally Crow?
I just read that one.
Oh, you did? Okay,
yeah.
Sorry, I'm behind then.
Alexis says, is talking about psychedelic mushrooms a sore subject? No, not a sore subject.
No.
I don't do drugs because I'm too sensitive. I'm already like over the edge. I
do some if I had some for magical purposes, not for I should clarify a little bit. I have a tendency to try to use things like that for magical development or to free up my consciousness from its confines, but I never use them for entertainment. I lost the desire to drink and stuff like that for entertainment a long time ago, so I do use cannabis, and I would use the mushrooms if I had any, even though we live on the coast. I haven't managed to find any yet. So, but for freeing my consciousness, I think the moment you start using it to dull your senses or to escape reality, that's when you have a problem. I'm using them to try to find reality. If that makes sense.
And certainly,
my take on it.
Yeah, certainly, the research that's being done on it to help people with depression and certain kinds of mental processing issues to be able to change the way the brain thinks is very encouraging. And mushrooms are interesting just as a life form, with the mycelium going out and helping trees to communicate and so forth. So there's lots of stuff about mushrooms.
Yeah. And Violet asked where the charge comes from. And you need to use your intention, but if you put it out in the moonlight with the intention that the moonlight will charge it up and then leave it out in the full moon and let it charge it up, you can do that. Or when Venus is out, focus on it being the Venus energy. So you can put nature's energy into it directly, like putting it into a full moon like that, but do it with the intention to put that energy in there.
You can also do it with a sigil, planetary seal.
Or if you're strong enough, you just do it with your wand and pull it down into it. You could draw the sign of the moon on the surface of your mirror with a wand or something like that to put the lunar energy into it. Yeah. So it's a combination of both. I feel like the more natural energy you can put into something, the better, as long as it goes in accord with what you desire. And then you can put your own energy on top of that to really give it a boost. So use both, would be my recommendations, natural energy and your own if possible. So if you wanted to put Mars energy into something, or you might make it on a Tuesday because Tuesday is associated with Mars. That would be one way to help get Mars energy into it. Or we're talking about Venus energy Friday, put Venus energy in it. So you got the days attributed to the planets. You can use those to help too.
And I do that a lot with some of my work. Is like, if I'm trying to get a specific kind of planetary energy involved, then I'll do it on the day. Like when I made all my planetary wands, I worked on them on their day. So, so I have one now for all 7, each 7 separate ones.
Yeah. So use your intention to put it in there, but the more natural energy, put in the natural energy, then you've got a big source. The moon is like a giant source of lunar prana energy. And
just
in fact,
blowing everywhere.
I was just reading there are some Native American tribes that get all of their energy from or not Native American, I'm sorry, native tribes, who get all of their energy from the moon, and they feel it's like just a giant tank of energy that's stored up that they can draw down and use. And I forget which group it was because I just read a passing reference to them earlier. So yeah, it's like all the planets and things like big reservoirs of energy you can use if you are just aware of it, that you can.
So Talon says that Moonfire, I recently gave away a handmade spirit board that looks like a black mirror and had glow-in-the-dark numbers and letters.
Sounds nice.
Nice. And you answered Alexis. Right. Violet says, sorry, repeat. Mary says, I'm fine with mushrooms. Sundrop says, how do you properly dispose of a cursed item? Can you burn it, bury it? Usually burying it, I think, is best. It depends. If it is flammable, burning it works too. The idea is to get it off your property and to destroy it and, get rid of it and stuff. And also to carefully use it so that it's not, handle it in a cautious manner so that you're not coming into contact with it, if that happens.
Okay, and for the sound, I moved my chair so maybe the sound will be better and not cut out so much.
Okay, the mic is pretty sensitive at this point, so you can probably...
Yeah, but I was facing directly behind it.
Yeah, but I don't know what was going on, but... Okay. So, Joy says, I believe something went past the window behind you. There was a shadow. Okay, so that could be some movement from back in there. Mary says, I was just wondering if my dogs scare elementals away since they are normally with me in the woods.
Normally they don't necessarily interfere with each other, so elementals won't normally be aggravated by natural animals, I don't think. What's your take on that?
I think it's unlikely, but it could be that your energy or your focus is distracted when you have your dogs with you. And because, they're like a presence there, and it could be that their overwhelming presence is enough to keep you from being able to sense the more subtle presences, like the gnomes or other elementals. Opal says, I learned about Sabo, or however it's spelled. It's used spiritually. I guess that's a substance. I haven't. Mary says, you guys have company today. Okay. Moonfire Dawn says, Michigan is trying to legalize shrooms. I hope so. I heard Colorado and Oregon legalized some areas. In Michigan did, but I don't have a car, sadly.
In Oregon, you actually can't buy them. And what they have planned here in Oregon for when they do it is going to be a scripted procedure to follow under medical care.
Yeah, it's a limited kind of thing in Oregon, and unfortunately they gave counties the option to opt out for 2 years after it became legal. And our county opted out, and a whole bunch of other counties in Oregon opted out. So although it has to be done in a clinical setting and so forth, they're having trouble rolling the program out. There was one company that was starting to train people, and it went under, I heard recently. So just because they've made it legal doesn't mean it's going to work for us either. It's one of those things. But I think it's time to do that. So Violet says, that is and was super helpful. Thank you. You're welcome, Violet. Sheila says, there seem to be a lot of new products made with mushrooms, like the mud drink.
Yeah, we're taking a mushroom supplement that helps, it's got turkey tail, it helps your immune system greatly, and it also helps cognitive responses, neural regrowth. It actually helps neural growth.
Yeah, it's a mushroom complex supplement that we're taking. And we think it's helping us. We don't know for sure, but it seems like a good idea.
Well, I remember not being sick once when everybody else was, that I blamed on the mushrooms, and I think probably still is.
Violet says 7 wands for the days. That is so cool, Siofra. Yeah, I think I did a whole video on that. Fred King says, can you train a thought form and have a powerful servant?
Short answer is yes. Long answer is think about it first, because there's all kinds of ways you can get in trouble. You have to take proper precautions so that the thought form you train doesn't prey on you or somebody else potentially that it's not supposed to. there's a lot of rules about it, and Barton's books go into a good explanation of how to actually create one.
Yeah, and thought forms are fed by the thoughts that you create, and people can respond to them. I see thought forms from time to time. And you can use thought forms more readily for communication, like how telepathy works. So if you're really close to someone, you can send them a thought, they can receive the thought, know how you're feeling, and get a picture of so forth. This is how that's done, is with thought forms.
But yes, basically you can make them astral or mental and have them be servants if you follow the prescribed rules of.
I think one of the potential hazards is they can turn into a larva.
Yeah.
So you want to be cautious about what kind of a thought form it is. And if the reason for the thought form is to try and make someone feel a certain way about you, especially, it could be seen as trying to mess with their free will. So you have to give that some consideration. Moonfire Dawn says, wow, to the Black Mirror. I thought about making one from a picture frame. Yeah. We have several.
That's basically how I make them myself, is we get a cheap picture frame and paint the inside of the glass black is an easy way to do it, and then put some fluid condenser on the back of that so it absorbs the energy.
Yeah.
And you've got a magic mirror.
And it's less expensive to do it that way. So, it's one of those.
A lot less expensive.
Instead of buying one that's like magically made by a person who has their name on it, as it were. So, it's definitely more doable on a budget, because you can just get a small picture frame from Walmart or a whatever store that you happen to be in, or even a secondhand store, and use it that way. Alexa says, I've heard about people using stronger doses with mushrooms and triggering psychosis or ending up freaking out. I'm wondering how worrisome that is.
Well,
I think everyone is different.
It's totally individual.
Everyone's an individual. It's one of the reasons why in Oregon you have to do it in a setting with the medical staff, just in case, because that's something that can happen. But, like everyone's brain chemistry is going to be a little bit different.
Yeah, it's not without its dangers. It's not a freebie way to make progress. Some people, like me, have their minds so closed, and not on purpose, mind you, but just cemented in place. Like from all my past, things are like glued in place, thought forms and thoughts and ideas and things that I really don't want in me, and I want to get rid of them. And they can be good for breaking up those kind of things. But then you have to face the reality underlying them. So, yeah, it can be a dangerous way to go, and I wouldn't recommend it straight up for anybody. It's all going to be totally individual, and yeah, there's no shortcut to enlightenment, really.
No, and with me, I like to have control over my abilities, and one of the things that I find with drugs, which I've done in the past when I was younger, is that your body is going to take you on a trip, and if you've decided that you're done, it doesn't matter, because you're still under the influence of whatever the substance is that you've taken. So if you get yourself into trouble magically or spiritually or emotionally or whatever, there's no way to stop the ride. It's like you've gotten on a roller coaster and that's it. So always think about what you're doing and make sure that you have a safety plan, and that people know what you're doing and know where you are and so forth. So in case something goes wrong, someone can make sure you get to where you need to be to get taken care of and not end up paying the ultimate price for trying something.
Yeah, I would say we don't even recommend it cautiously. It's one of those try it at your own risks things officially is,
Yeah.
And there may be risk, and it all depends on your situation and where you're at. So,
yeah, that's pretty much it. So I figured out what's happening over there is the canvas is falling and moving, that we have on the roof, and it's blowing it through, which is catching my eye. So now I know what it is, which is helpful. Mary says, I've been living in the woods for 4 years now, and I know there are gnomes and such around. I feel fairies left me a gift in my garden, but I wish I could see them more. Maybe I need more intention. And, it's a matter of practice and focus in a non-focused way. It's one of those things. Sundrop says, do you believe in or have you seen doppelgangers and black-eyed children? I once had apparently a doppelganger that I never saw, but other people swore I had, because I was reported being at a location that I wasn't at more than once, or I was bilocating, I'm not sure, because in some cases it seemed like they thought I was really there at the party when I lived up in the Kispioks. But when I lived in Vancouver, British Columbia, and I was pregnant with my son, people saw me at other places pregnant, and I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. As far as black-eyed children go, I've not encountered one. I think that I don't know what I think about that whole phenomenon and whether it's real or not. It's probably unlikely that it's real, but it's one of those things that unless it happens to you, so I leave my mind open to the possibility. But I've seen a lot of stuff, and that's one thing I haven't seen. So Talon says at Moonfire Dawn, the board mirror was a large glass cutting board with lots of coats of paint on just one side. The numbers, letters came from a vinyl sign shop. Cool. Julisso says, hello. Hi, Julissa. Mary says, always start with a very small dose of everything, I think, whatever it is, and get a feel of whatever it is before ever taking higher doses of anything.
And that goes for even things that aren't drugs. I mean,
I do that for vitamins.
Even types of magic and stuff.
Yeah.
Try a little dose and see how you resonate with it before you go whole hog.
I do that for like, if I'm taking a vitamin, I do the single thing itself to see how my body responds to it, so that I know whether I want to include it in my thing. So I like to do the one ingredient at a time kind of method. Julissa says, during a simple new moon ritual, a mirror cracked down the middle. What could it mean? The candle was nowhere near the middle. I guess the mirror is done working and wants to go away. There might have been a flaw in the glass. I mean, that does happen. It may not mean anything. It may not be like a message from the universe saying, how dare you use a mirror? I have a spasm in my leg. Come on. Get my leg out there so I can stretch it. Yeah, there we go. Nothing like having a spasm in your upper thigh when your leg is bent. But yeah, it's hard to know, because glass is sometimes flawed, and if it was outdoors, if it was like the temperature was changing, the changing in temperature will actually put more stress on an object than about anything you can do.
Yeah, that's true.
So it could mean that you just need a new mirror and try it again and see.
Okay. Here, we're going to move this a little bit, so sound is probably going to make some noises. There. Now you can stick your leg out.
Okay, well, I got it out. I'm good.
Yeah, but now you can do it without kicking the...
Oh yeah, that's true. Thank you. I appreciate that. I just like it was sudden. I love muscle spasms. It's like, no, body, stop that. What the heck do you think you're doing? Mary says, when you say focus, non-focus, can you explain what you see? Like looking at those pictures where there's something that comes out at you 3D when you shift your eyes. Is it blurry vision or pixelate? Yeah. It's on focusing your eyes. I don't know about the 3D pictures because I can't look at them. They give me a headache, and I never see anything. My eyes don't quite work that way.
Yeah, it's kind of a soft focus thing, and a lot of people see like a gray mist or gray bubbles moving around or something like that when they're getting into the clairvoyant aspect. That's the only thing I can add to that.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about like gazing over water to help you. We've talked about this a number of times where the brain has been trained as to what to pay attention to. And this is a way to untrain that part of your brain so that it doesn't shut out input that you want, especially if you're trying to see spirits and fairies and that kind of thing. Because their energy is subtle. It's not as in your face as like a tree or a flower.
And it can feel a little bit like, almost like falling asleep and dreaming it, except that you don't lose your consciousness.
Yeah. And being able to accept the images when they come, it takes a little bit of training for that as well. Because it's a shock to your system. The first time you actually see something, your brain goes like, what's that? And then you suddenly can't see it. So, I think I did a video on the subject when we were talking about scrying and divination. There's a couple of different times I talk about that whole process and what happens to me.
Yeah, it just takes practice to learn how to relax and yet not fall asleep and stay awake and keep focused on what you're trying to see.
Fred King, Julisso says, thank you, doll, I adore you, you're welcome. Fred says, can I make a sigil for invincibility? If not, what's the best method? I don't think that there is any such thing as total invincibility. Your best bet is to be aware of your environment and paying attention to what's going on around you so that you can sidestep trouble before it comes. Because if you think you're invincible, you're more likely to go walking into the middle of something.
Yeah, there's methods that we could talk about, but they're advanced methods for somebody who's been practicing a long time. And like the Kabbalah, Barden gives a Kabbalistic formula that forms a perfect mental and astral hood so that nothing can penetrate it. And it pretty much makes a shield of invincibility around you, but that also includes invincibility to good things. Nothing gets through it. So in a way, it'd be like cutting off your breath because you don't want to breathe a bad smell. You don't want to leave it that way for long. Right. So there are methods, but it's Barden's Kabbalistic method is complicated and requires a lot of personal training to be able to use the techniques to do it right.
Yeah. So, Charity says, hello. Hi, Charity. Fred says, where do you go after you die? Well, that's going to depend on you. My personal opinion is you end up where you think you're supposed to be or where you think you deserve to be.
You end up on some part of the astral plane, but the astral plane goes from the rough, most bestial natures of people and their thoughts about it to the highest and most divine aspects of people and nature. So you can go from holy to really awful in the astral plane, depending on exactly what you're looking for. So it depends on what state you are in. According to Barden, it depends on what state you are in of personal development, how far up towards the light you go on the astral plane after you die.
Yeah. And the thing is that that's the reason for shadow work, is to try and clear the stuff out that's in your subconscious that may lead you into a place that you don't think you want to go when you're conscious. Because your unconscious is just sort of raw and unfiltered, and when you're dead, it's all out there. So doing the work while you're alive and working on yourself to become the kind of person that you can be proud of, and to work through the programming that you've gained by experiences in the world, misunderstanding the relationship between things, making erroneous connections of cause and effect that may not be true, religion, path work, what you learn in school. I mean, there's a lot of different potential things there, so that when you do cross over, if the more of that you can clear out while you're here and alive, the more likely you are to have a positive experience on the other side and go to a place that's more pleasant.
Yeah.
I did remember sending myself to hell after one death that I had, and I was, I didn't do anything bad in that life in particular, but I thought bad things. And when I died, I saw the thoughts I had, and they were terrible looking thoughts, because thoughts look like what they are. So if you think about wanting to kill somebody, it's not a pretty thing to look at, or, whatever.
Yeah, and that stays out there. And
then just seeing that thought after I was dead, I felt like I deserved to be punished, and I was raised in a rural community in the Middle Ages somewhere, and raised a Christian. So naturally I figured that meant I deserved to go to hell, and so then I did. At least for a period of time. I did discover during that experience of the memory of it all that you can't stay in those places unless you can remember why you're there. And so that's an important factor as well. Just because when you die you go one place doesn't mean that's the place you end up. So once you can't hold that thought together as to like, I deserve to be here, this is what I did, then it sort of fades off and you can't maintain that connection, and then you end up somewhere else because your energy's changed enough. I don't know if that helps. Kelly says, I recently made a candle for my niece that was filled with love and prosperity for her. After burning for a few minutes, it turned into an inferno, and the glass broke in several places. Is it possible I put a little too much intention into it? I have made many for others without that happening. I don't know.
It's unlikely, but Barden does mention that can happen. He mentions a time when it happened to himself when he exploded a magic mirror by charging it too intently. So, depends on how intense you are, I guess. It's not very likely, but I wouldn't say it's impossible, so it could be.
I guess one of the questions is that when you made the candle, did you put material in it, like herbs and stuff like that? Maybe that's what happened, or we don't know. So, Alexis says, do you have any grounding techniques for a learning massage therapist?
Mary says she's looked up your
yeah,
scrying
thanks.
video.
I don't think I've watched your scrying video. I'll look it up. Yeah. Alexis says, do you have any grounding techniques for a learning massage therapist for before and after each client? Yes, since I am a massage therapist, I have them, lots of them. Okay, so massage table has got 4 feet. Put roots on the bottom of those feet in your mind. Imagine that your table is like a tree and it goes straight into the ground. When your client is on the table, their energy goes from their body through the table legs and into the earth, not into you, because that is bad for you. You, on your chair, if you're sitting on a chair or standing, you pull energy from the earth up into you through your feet, and you can breathe it in from around you through the air to bring that energy down, the healing energy in, to put into the client. I also had a smoky quartz that I used for grounding negative energy, and I had a rooting cord on that, so it didn't have to be cleaned regularly, which I don't understand why people constantly clean their crystals. But so I had it sitting in the corner of my office, and it had its own rooting cord, so any extra energy that came out would ground through into the ground and it would cleanse itself. I also had a large amethyst crystal under the table, and I used that to bring in positive energy into the healing environment and help me to focus better. And then in between clients, when you go wash your hands, and you put your hands in the water and let the water rinse your hands, focus on the water, taking any energy you may have accidentally picked up from your client and draining it out through the sink, down the drain, and leaving your body and leaving it behind. So those are some of the things that I would do. So Bep says we all go to hell. Well, hopefully not. But we probably all went to hell at least once.
Good to see you, Bep. I'm glad you're here after our discussion last time. I was a little worried, but...
Welcome back. Mary says, I was involved in a Buddhist chant, and the monk said when someone hears this chant, they will hear it again at death, even if they just heard it once. I don't want to hear it because I didn't like it. Well, maybe he was wrong, and if you don't accept his assumption about how reality works, you may not hear it on your death.
Yeah, add a little thing to a whole thing. Barton uses the term a sphere of power of something, so it means a connection with the force behind it. If you're connected and want to be connected with the force of those monks, then it could be. Because you can get in contact with different religions that have different rules and things, and then that'll sort of become it for you if you really make a good identification with them. So, yeah.
And I think, too, that the belief in the energy of it makes a huge difference as far as whether it's likely to happen or not. And if you're on a completely different path and you're not doing anything about that, I wouldn't,
Yeah, don't concern yourself with it.
Yeah. So Laud says, Hi, Laud. I tapped 3 times on a glass surface with my wand recently and then heard 3 light but distinct taps afterwards. It was not an echo. What are your thoughts on this? Thanks.
Interesting.
It sounds like you got an answer. Tapping is one of the ways spirit communicates with us, supposedly. And it's a nice to get a light tap instead of a loud rapping sound or something. And I have heard tapping from time to time. For me, if it's in the middle of the night, it's usually like a warning or something, just an alert. But that sounds like a direct response to what you were doing. So the powers that be wanted you to know that they heard you and that they were paying attention. That would be my take on it. So Mary says, that experience has always freaked me out, and I really hope I never hear that chant again. I like what you say. I like that you say what happens is what you believe.
But we should add to that, that doesn't necessarily mean your conscious beliefs either.
That's what we talked about.
Subconscious beliefs. And
that's
things
why it's
too.
important to work through those things while you're alive.
Exactly.
And get them the heck out. Lulu says, hello, sorry I'm late. Hi Lulu, always welcome. I've been sick. All of us are. Some nasty virus. I'm so sorry. Being sick sucks. I don't like it when I get sick. Opal says, I learned that if your candle flame burns bright and evenly all the way down, then there's no interference in the spell. Otherwise, there's something going on. Fred says, I'm still confused about after death. I hear people talk about a soul can wander around and not know they're dead yet, like in the hospital. Yes. I have spent a lot of time in this life helping those spirits find their way to where they're supposed to go. That would be a spirit that has usually died with something intense on their mind at the time of their death, where they feel unfinished, they have a violent death or a sudden death, and they don't know that they're dead. Some of them know that they're dead, but are trying to get a hold of their loved ones to let them know that they're okay and have some communication with them. There's a lot of different reasons. I met one who refused to leave because he was mad that he came over here to start a new life and then ended up dying in the influenza epidemic in the early 1900s. And he just refused to accept the fact that he was dead because it wasn't fair. So that can happen, but that's not that common. Otherwise, you'd never be able to walk through a room, because there have been so many people on the planet through history. If all of them didn't make it to the other side, then, it'd be a living hellscape. It'd be not fun here at all. So yes, that can happen. And I have had that happen in the hospital. Actually, when Ian was in the hospital, when he was needing a blood transfusion, and I was staying in the room with him, there was one of our local firemen that died in a fire, and apparently he was still wandering the halls of the hospital because he suddenly walked into the room and I saw him missing most of his face. It was clear that he had burned up, but I told him I couldn't help him because I was there for Ian, not to try and help spirits cross over and give messages to people. So yeah, and it is complicated. There's certainly plenty of things out there.
Complicated it is.
Yep. So Bep says, good to see you as well. Was nothing personal last time, just expressing in a straight way. Respect your opinion, stated mine. Awesome. That's what we want.
Yep, exactly.
Fred says, I hear about how people say karma determines where you go after you die as well. Well, that's going to depend upon your belief in karma and what you think it's for. And this is a subject, actually, that I probably want to do a video on at one point and talk about, because our concept, most people's concept of karma is like punishment, reward. And the idea that if you do something bad in one life, then you need to come back and have something bad happen to you to balance the scales. And I think that this is an erroneous assumption. And I think if we change how we look at that, we can actually come into a better position in the following life if we don't think we deserve to be punished for something that we did in this one.
I like much more of a mechanical view of that, where if you do something, whatever it is you do, good or bad or whatever, you set loose some energy. And that energy is going to materialize down, and how it happens is your karma. So,
yeah, and that would be while you're alive.
Yes, and after you're dead, the karma that you have left over from stuff that hasn't worked its way through yet is still out there.
But after you're dead, your attitude towards karma and how you believe that you can make up for it makes a difference as to what happens to you.
Yeah.
And that's the part I'm talking about, is that we need to start changing that dialogue now while we're alive, so that when we die, we don't end up So
stuck in your own hell.
exactly. Yeah. And then from societal point of view, it's just continuing the cycle of dysfunction. So if you're a dysfunctional person and you do something terrible to somebody, you come back to be abused and be a victim. And then you get to come back to abuse the person who victimized you, and it just goes on and on endlessly. So that's a conversation to try and start the process of stopping the cycle of dysfunction that we have in our world right now. But yeah. Charity says, I think I may have been a Victorian lady in one of my past lives. Maybe you were. Claude says, thank you for your answer in regards to the 3 taps I heard. I had just asked my spirit guides for protection, so great to know they replied. Lewis said, had a fun dream last night. My head was hurting a lot, and I knew I had to wake up to do something about this, but couldn't wake up. So I saw a younger version of myself in my dream and asked her to help me wake up. So she told me to wake up, and I did wake up. Well, good for you. I think that's incredible. Very awesome. So, yeah. It's always good when you can get help from your other parts of your personality in your sleep. Way to go. But yeah, the whole thing about what we think and how it affects us is a huge subject. There's no doubt about that, because it's like it affects so many different things. Past, present, future, other lifetimes.
Other people's thoughts affect us, depending on how your shielding is and such.
Yep. Alexa says, how do you put a cord on each crystal for self-cleansing? Just imagine one there, I assume? Yes. When you hold on to the crystal, you give it the picture that it has a root coming out of the bottom of it. When you place it on the floor, wherever it's going to be, and you feel that connection of that root going down into the earth and tapping into the earth energy and make it directional. So the energy is going down. A root can go both ways. It can go up or it can go down. So when you want the energy to come up, you have the roots, but the energy comes up, like into you when you're doing massage. And you want the energy to go away, the root goes down. Because the earth can cleanse any energy that you have. You can take the dirtiest, yuckiest water in the world and put it through a pile of dirt and have it come out clean the other side. So, the earth is good at filtering in reality, and it's also good at filtering energetically. It's like the greatest resource we have for that. And I used to worry that somehow if I gave away or let go of some negative energy that I had, like rage in particular, that I would be harming the planet, but that's not the case. It's you're keeping energy that you can't use that's harming you, which is actually harming the planet because you're part of the planet. And letting it go allows the planet to redistribute that energy, since it's not created or destroyed, to do something else with it, like grow a tree. So that's how I see it. If that doesn't work for you, then
it's recycled and it's all relative.
Yeah.
What's good for a mushroom might be bad for you. What's bad for a mushroom, like not having too much water, just like water.
Yeah.
Anyway, just the thought, it's relative. By the time it gets into the earth, you could almost consider it as just a neutral energy almost from that point of view. I mean, it'll go to where it needs to and can be used, and it'll go to where it's needed.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable how the planet knows what's going on. Something dies in the woods, and within seconds, there's something there to start processing the death. It's like, clean up on aisle 5. It's like, okay, here we come. Here come the microbes, and here come the animals, and whatever else that needs to happen in order to clean this mess up and turn it into something else.
Because those things actually need that. They need that to function. So
yeah, and so the communication system that is around the planet of smells and sounds and taste and instinct and everything else is just so well honed, and we're the ones that sort of step out of that and get confused about what's really going on. So yeah. So Joy says, I wish I knew that. When I was a massage therapist, I collected too much yuck. Yeah.
Yeah, lots of it out there.
And Lulu says, yes, this reminds me when I was a child, my grandmother taught me how to filter water through a filter made of sand and earth. She knew how to survive in the woods. Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like nature teaches us processes that can translate not just to the physical reality that it works in, but to the energetic reality that we can exist in too. There's principles. So there's that.
Right back.
Mary says, my friend has had 2 tragedies happen on the land by her house on full moons within 7 months, and she is feeling like there is a connection with the full moon and the land or something. She wants help. Well, during a full moon, energy is higher, so if there's something there that is like not at ease, it could be that it gets activated, and then the energy moves around and does something. There was a group north of us. I went on a ferry walk, they called it, with them the day we were visiting in the evening. And the guy that was there, whose area it was, he was a member of another witch group, led me to a place in the woods that it had like a stream running through it, and he said the energy there always got muddy and dark, and I could feel it when we went in. It was definitely muddy and dark, and that they, as a group, had done stuff to try and make it better, but it never took. It was like it would be better for a while, but then it would come back. And when I was there and I was looking across the muddy, not very well running creek, I saw the spirit of, I think, 2 or 3 men who'd been murdered. They died somehow there of unpleasant circumstances. And I knew that it was their energy that was infecting that part of the woods. And so what I did was I helped them to cross over, and when I helped them to leave to go to a place that was better for them instead of being stuck here, then the air changed, the light quality changed, it got brighter underneath the trees where we were, which is an indication that it's worked. And then later on he contacted me and told me that since I had done that, the creek had cleared up, the place was completely different, it was not like the same place. So my suggestion would be to see if you can feel something that's just not the way it's supposed to be. Go for a walk and stuff like that, yeah, just see what you can feel. If you can find a locus spot, some kind of a central location where the energy seems to be collected. There's places around the country where, a massacre has taken place that has some really horrific energy. There's any number of possibilities, so I would definitely check that. Fred says, is there psychic training to see the dead or thought forms? Well, if you train yourself to be more clear so that you know what your thought forms are and get clear about what your energy is, then it becomes easier to actually see other people's. I was
Very
kind of
true.
born this way, and then I had to figure out how to control it and manage to survive all the strange things that seem to happen to me and the things I run into. So I'm not coming at it from that perspective, but I know that really when it comes to the craft and so forth, the reason for getting into it is not to become a great psychic or develop psychic abilities and powers. The reason for being in it is self-development and becoming the best version of yourself, and to take control of your own life and what you want to do with it and your own self, and to become the person you want to be. And if you do that, if that's the right thing for your existence in this life, the abilities will start to come forward. You have to be balanced though before you try that, because if you do that in an imbalanced way, you can go over a cliff pretty easily.
Yeah, well, and I should add that, which most of the people here already know because I talk about it way too often, but Barton's books are a series of trainings, starting with book 1, step 1, to do that kind of thing, to see thought forms and things. And it's about the 5th or 6th step in or something like that, but Barton's books require a serious commitment to self-development. Otherwise, you'll never be able to do the processes that he describes, because And that's the way the training system is set up, the way he made it.
And so Joy says, do you have a video on how to cross ghosts over? Yes, I do. As best as I can describe it, and the ways that someone who can't do what I can do might be able to help. Because, like, I did a ritual in Texas with 13 people, 13 other people, where I used all the energy that we built up to pierce a hole between the worlds and open up the doorway between this world and the next so that we could cross over a group of natives who'd been killed in a battle. And it worked. But once I did that, I can now open up that same portal anytime, anywhere I need it. So I don't have to, I mean, if I come across a spirit and I have the time and energy, because you have to maintain yourself as well, and I can figure out what it is that's keeping them here, I can open up that portal, I can call their loved ones over. If I see where they're going to go, then I know I've made a good connection. And I've seen so many different afterlives, it's kind of fascinating. So yeah, I would start with that video, and I think it might just be crossing over or something. How to cross over a ghost. I'll look it up and maybe stick it on our community page for you. So Mary says, thank you, Siofra, for that thoughtful answer. I hadn't thought about the full moons. Could be sparking that energy. Good. Shay says, hello, coming in for the last 20 minutes. Hey, Shay. Joy says, okay, I'll look for it. Bep says, interestingly, also help the spirit transit by the ruins near to the river. Remember the clearing of eeriness in the air, same like you expressed, the lightness. Yeah, I mean, when I'm doing a house or whatever that kind of thing is, whenever I do something like that, I can tell whether I'm successful because everyone else will notice the air's quality has changed. The light's quality has changed. It suddenly got brighter. It feels lighter, less dense and so forth. And it is a very intense feeling when that happens that people that aren't like me can sense because they talk about it when we do that. And so when I see that, I know that there's been a success. Like when, I guess when my daughter-in-law's mother passed, and I was sitting in my doctor's office waiting for her, I felt her when she passed because she came to me, and the light in the room suddenly got way bright. It was like somebody just cranked up the candles in the room. It's like, wow. So I knew something was up, but I couldn't really focus on it at the time. And I told her, I said, I don't know when my doctor's going to come in. And I'm not sure how my doctor would feel if she walked in with me trying to cross over a ghost in her office or talk to a spirit or something like that. She wasn't really a ghost, but yeah. So yes, it's interesting. Fred says, I'm still having trouble astral projecting. I'd imagine my soul leaving my body, though no success.
Okay, I'm gonna add a little bit there. What you need to imagine to start with is your consciousness leaving your body. Okay, and that would be mental travel, where you don't have to have a form. You can be amorphous, but your consciousness leaves your body, so that you're standing. Your consciousness is outside your body. Okay, and you can go places that way, and that's mental travel, but you don't really have a form. Astral traveling is when you do have to project your astral body out, and the way Barden recommends doing it is projecting your astral body out and then projecting your consciousness into that body as a separate item, and then when you're astral projecting that way, you're doing so with your mental and astral body at the same time. But mental travel is just fine. You just can't affect things on so much of a physical plane, but you can still view and visit everything, and it requires practice, and it really requires balance of elements. The more the elements within you are balanced, the easier astral travel is going to be, or mental travel, both. So it could be being out of balance too, but picture it that way. Your consciousness, transfer your consciousness out, and then worry about it later if there's a form or a shape that you want to put with it to get your astral body out and that kind of thing.
And Julia says it's not so much your soul as it is an astral body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But by the way, Barden does use that. He uses the term soul to as astral body implies their connection, that's what people are talking about when they say the soul is actually their astral body.
You have several different bodies. You
Yeah.
have your physical body, your astral body, your mental body, and your spirit body. So, you need to get in the right body.
Yep.
And I recommend the mental body first, for sure, just like Ian said. Because
It's easier, yeah.
it's
to
easier,
get started with.
and then it's not as intense emotionally, so you're not so connected through your feelings and so forth. So if something weird happens, you're less likely to have a panic attack.
If you're out mentally, it'll affect you a lot less on an emotional level. That's what the astral body is associated with. So if you want all the emotional aspect of traveling somewhere, you probably want to do that in your astral. But if you want to avoid that because what you're seeing may be unpleasant or something, you might look at something you really don't want to have the feelings about. Could be something negative or something.
So Lil says, I am more sensitive to energy when in a weakened physical condition. Illness makes me more open, so I am actually more interested in self-protection. Yeah, I'm the same way, and I think that's typical of most of us, because when you're in a weakened physical condition, you don't have all of your faculties, your normal faculties for taking care of like any psychic intrusions or whatever out there, which is why I have things set up in my room for self-protection all the time, so that then when I'm sick, I can make sure that they're being used. And Ian has actually made he charged up a stone to block out absolutely everything that I keep in a silk pouch, because you don't want it to work all the time. And if I'm really sick, I take that out. And that's sort of a message to all the spirits that like to visit me and check in on me and see what I'm up to stay away. It's like, this is a do not disturb sign of a psychic type. But yeah, the kinds of stuff that we have in our rooms, we've got the copper wrapped around the frame with the knife going into the floor to ground thought forms, the bed frame, yeah. To ground out thought forms and things from other people while you're sleeping, so it gives you a better night's sleep. I cast a circle around my house as well as my room. Most nights it's been there for so long now, it's sort of active, but I reinstitute it, especially if I'm not feeling well. I talk out loud to let them know what's going on and say, hey guys, I'm in this weakened state, please leave me alone. If you want to come in and help heal me, I've had the fairies come and give me healings from time to time when I've been ill. They did that last year for one of the things we went through, I think. And that can be wonderful, that you can draw upon some healing energy to help boost your immune system and help you get through with what you're getting through. So it's not just a matter of like keeping everything out. So it's going to depend on what your needs are. Sundrop says, when astral traveling, do you really die if the cord is cut?
I have an answer
Not
for that.
everyone has a cord. It's there if they want it and if they need it. And I think the answer is no, but then the other question is, can you die astral traveling? And that's a different question. No?
Not going to go there.
Not going to go there. Okay.
Yeah.
What you believe is
Sorry,
important.
Sundrop. It's just a slight variation in philosophy there, so I'm going to not answer. Nothing to do with you, sorry.
Mary says, maybe if I make her a protection satchel for her home and land for the full moons? Maybe. That's not a bad idea. Yeah. Sandcat says, hi everyone. Hi Siofra and Ian. Hi Sandcat.
Yeah, well, I will add something to Sundrop. It's only under one very specific circumstance you can die if the cord is cut or if somebody touches your body, and that is if you've gone astral to the point, which can happen if you're really good at it or you practice a lot, to where your body stops breathing. If you're in the condition where your body is not breathing and you're breathing in the astral, and this usually takes conscious effort to consciously breathe in the astral. If you succeed at that, you'll be a lot more present astrally, but that's when you can get in trouble by damaging the astral cord and such. Prior to the point of my understanding is that prior to the point of your body physically stopping breathing, you're not under any risk.
And chances are you aren't that advanced, so you're probably safe.
Yeah, that's about 99.9% of the people aren't that advanced or just don't care to do it.
Yeah.
You kind of have to start breathing astrally on purpose in most cases. So, yeah. I didn't want to make that more confusing.
I don't think that was confusing. And like I said, some people don't ever see the silver cord, so they're not going to be anxious about it being cut.
And you don't really have it if you're just, when you're mental traveling, you have no silver cord. There just isn't one. You just don't have to worry about it in mental travel. That's another reason for the preference of mental travel in most cases.
So Laud says, can you be spiritually enlightened and still have crappy health? As there is sometimes the assumption we can rise above illness, I have never had great health, but I feel quite spiritually strong. Yeah, because there's more than one thing going on. Your spiritual health is one thing, your physical health is another. Because with your physical body, you've got the environment that you're in and that you were raised in. You've got the genetics that you inherited from the family line that you have. You know, it's not just your mind and where you are and how you feel about the spirit world and so forth, so you can be spiritually advanced and still be physically weak.
However, I will add that as you progress in spiritual advancement, your health will generally improve overall because of that, but it still doesn't mean you can't have certain overriding conditions or things.
Ha! Julia says, I've got something that happens off and on when I'm relaxed or falling asleep, or just as I'm waking up. I hear a loud boom-like noise, and it's made me jerk fully awake. So wonder what this could be. I don't know what it is, but it happens to me. And it happens to my granddaughter, and it's like an internal sound kind of thing, and sometimes it's like a shock that goes through the body. I call it like an electrical storm that just sort of goes. And so I don't know what to say about that. That's what I think it is anyway. And it's annoying when it happens. I don't like it. I guess there's actually a medical condition that causes that. My granddaughter was telling me, but I don't remember what it is. Or, they have it as a symptom for some people, for some things. So I don't know if you wanted to talk to your doctor about it or not. Or do a Google search and see what comes up, or some kind of search. So Sundrop says, I have low mood. Can peppermint help boost it? Yeah, supposedly.
Love peppermint.
I like peppermint. But, things work differently for different people. Like, chamomile is supposed to be very soothing to the stomach. It makes me feel sick to my stomach and nauseous. And I can't drink it. So, again, it's like everybody is a little bit different. Lulu says, it happens to me as well, internal boom. Yeah. Sandcat says, I have that feeling of hitting the bed and hearing a loud noise. I don't know what it is. I've heard it called exploding head syndrome. Well, that's a comforting term. Yeah, don't worry, guys. I just have exploding head syndrome, so, make sure you stand at least 10 feet away from me at all times, just in case I go off. Julia says, wow, you've got it too. Okay, just glad I'm not the only one. Yeah, I don't know if it's like excessive electrical activity or what, but I used to have what I thought of as electrical storms in my brain when I was young, and I could hear it and I could see it. It'd be this noise, kind of crackling sound, and then I would see the light. And they actually tested me for epilepsy, but they didn't seem to find anything, so apparently it wasn't that. Sandcat says, it's a weird name for it. Yes, it is. Alexa says, I've had dreams of staring into the eyes of a dead woman, and also people that are in the room with me walking around or talking to me about spirit talking to them. And I also had sleep paralysis those nights. And the sleep paralysis is another weird thing. I don't suffer from that generally, although every so often I have one of those things where I'm trying to make myself wake up. And if I can,
it's hard to make yourself wake up.
If I can get any part of my body to move, then I can become back in my body. But I think that's the closest I've come to actual sleep paralysis.
Yeah, that's usually what I do too, is try to kick or something, or trying to,
Yeah.
Or I'm talking in my sleep and I'm wondering why I sound like I'm drunk in my sleep usually, without realizing I'm talking in my sleep. It's like, why
When he's yelling in his sleep, he yells in real life.
Yep.
but you can't hear anything. It just comes like, ah! And then I jump out of bed and run in. Hello, what's going on? Having a nightmare? Well, no, it wasn't exactly a nightmare. I just couldn't get anyone to listen to me, and I was getting really mad that they weren't hearing what I had to say, and I'm yelling at them.
Yeah, that was funny. That was a dream where I was yelling at people. Yeah.
Yeah.
They weren't listening.
And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, what's going on? And so Lula says, I have strange sleep patterns. She has sleep paralysis too. And Bep says, I like Siofra also seeing vortex while gazing at the sky. Didn't hear anyone speaking about it before. Yeah, I have that. Sandcat says, both of my adult twin sons have had sleep paralysis and shadow person encounters. I'm so glad I don't get that. It sounds terrifying. Yes, it does. And you know, from the medical perspective, it's like the part of your brain that turns off your body so you don't go sleepwalking or, you know, sleep angling or whatever, sometimes works too well, apparently. And the person becomes conscious and that part of their brain is still maintaining the paralysis so that you don't walk in your sleep. And it can be terrifying from what I hear. Luo says, I talk in my sleep, but I used to sleepwalk as a child. Annoying. Opal says, I had sleep paralysis happen throughout my life, and I find it to be pre-astral projection. I've seen entities a few times. And I think that if you can go with it and not be too terrified when it's happening, it's easier for it to stop, from what I hear. But, again, I'm glad I don't have that. Everyone's got something. So we're coming up, we're past our hour and a half at this point, so I guess it's time for us to say bye-bye. And thank you all for coming to our chat and getting us going on some subjects, so it's always fun.
Yeah, it's been a great conversation.
Opal says one looked like a gargoyle that was upset because I told it to leave because I was too tired. Aw, the poor guy. He just wanted to have company. All right. So, as usual, great conversation. Thank you guys. We'll see you next week.
Nice talking to you all.